Lee, we've got another awesome broadcast coming at everybody from inside of my car. And there it is. We're working. I've got a new system that allows me to check that everything is operational while we're going. Thank you, by the way, for joining me tonight to fill in for Charles while he's off doing exotic things in exotic locations. He's somewhere where there's basically no internet, but, you know, he's fancy like that. How are you tonight, Lee?
Well, let's say Charles needs a Starlink because he could probably afford it.
Yes. He's talking about getting that, actually. He might get that.
And let me say that no one can replace Charles. So thanks for having me on, but I'm humbly not a replacement for Charles
No,
Ortel.
certainly not. Certainly not. But we're just, we're doing the best we can. I want to make
But
sure
he
that
doesn't have the
everybody.
cap.
Yes. No, nobody can beat the cap. And I know that everybody knows you, Lee, but for people who aren't yet following you on X, people can do that at Stranahan. And we got a lot to talk about tonight. You're constantly growing there on X, Lee, 85,000 followers. You were so early on X. It's amazing. People who are seeing you for the first time.
For someone who's shadow banned, too, that's pretty good for a person who's shadow banned. Because a lot of people tell me, like people have been following me for a while, I don't see you on. And you know me, I'm on a lot. So
Yeah.
I'm still shadow banned, but what am I going to do?
There's nothing that can be done. We want to talk tonight about Michael Horowitz and the OIG report. He's the Inspector General for the Department of Justice. Now, I forgot to load your graphics, so it's also important that we remind everybody that we're going to be doing a sponsor exclusive segment. So I want to encourage people to visit patreon.com/Stranahan, where people can sponsor Lee and check out all of the great stuff he's posting on there. He's got his Legacy Media Roundup is one of the new things that Lee has been doing. Lee, why don't you tell everybody about what you're doing there on Patreon?
Legacy Media Roundup happens every day. It's 5 news sources, NPR on the left, or state media, I'll call it that, Fox News on the supposed right, ABC News, supposedly, well, they just got sued. George Stephanopoulos, ABC's got to pay Trump $15 million for defamation.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, I think so.
So cool.
You can't lie. It still shows that sometimes the justice system works. So
Yeah.
I put BBC up there and DW, Deutsche Welle News in Germany. And
Wow.
what I do is all those sources do a 5-minute newscast, or sometimes 2 minutes, but do a 5-minute newscast at the top of the hour. So people in their car, like in the radio, they get 5 minutes of news from Fox or NPR or whoever. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm one of those people in my car right now. But I think a lot of people maybe haven't gone into too many details on the Inspector General report. It's confusing, these Inspector General reports. It feels like we get a lot of them from time to time, or some of them at least, but I don't know, whatever happens with these Inspector General reports.
Well, I got a lot to say about the IG report, but let me finish explaining about legacy media, because some people say, well, I don't need the news from those bastards. Make sense?
Yes.
But first off, let me say this. Like the sources I get in the summary. So what I do is I record them actually. Then I have them summarized. So every story that they covered. So you can see what source is covering what stories. Does that make sense?
You're summarizing it with AI?
What's that?
You've been summarizing it with artificial intelligence?
Yeah, very much so. And I'll talk about that in a second, because I want to say something about AI and this report. But I used to have my son Shane do it.
Mm-hmm.
I used to do this years ago.
He's not as technologically advanced as AI, though.
Right. And this is, by the way, how I ended up in Lebanon in 2013. When I was doing news every day, I wanted to be a pro. Like, what I mean by be a pro is like, because I do news for a living, right? So anyone during the day could ask me, well, what do you think about the drones? Or what do you think about Korea, the impeachment? And if I say, I don't know, right? And then I'm not a professional.
You can't look stupid, right?
Right. And I don't know what anyone's going to ask. I know what sources I like and what I read, basically my X timeline. So I get sources like Tucker and like Alex Jones. I don't watch Alex's full show or Tucker's full show, but I get a sense of that, right? But if you listen to those sources, you might not know anything about what's going on in Korea. Does that make sense? So
I
to
haven't
have a
heard what's
full
going on in
spectrum,
Korea. The martial
what's
law?
going on? No, what's going on is the prime minister has been impeached.
Whoa.
He's been thrown out because he declared martial law a
Uh-huh.
few weeks ago. And so they were very upset about that, for obvious reasons. And so he's been impeached. They tried to do it last weekend. They failed because members of his party refused to participate. But
Huh.
they just like a day ago, they impeached him. So that's obviously pretend you're Korean. First off, you have good food, but pretend you're Korean. That's like the
Yeah,
biggest story. That's like the Trump Biden stuff, right?
absolutely.
In your world. So
Yeah.
it's a huge story. But you see what I'm saying? You didn't know
Mm-hmm.
about it. And Jason,
No.
I consider you a very solid, knowledgeable source on news. So
Mhm.
what these summaries do is they give you like lay out, in 5 minutes, I summarize all of them. And can you go back and play one of the news summaries for a second? Because people will hear it's my voice, but it won't sound like this.
Sure. Let's try that. I've got it all set up
Just play a
to
little
go.
bit.
Hello, citizen journalists. It's Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Now, here's what the legacy media is putting in their headlines. From BBC News, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres spoke about the reshaping of the Middle East, highlighting the potential end of the Assad regime in Syria as a moment of hope. The new Islamist authorities in Syria announced plans to dissolve Assad's security forces and hunt down those involved in torturing detainees.
So
NASA's
Jason,
James Webb
I
Space
guess
Telescope.
so.
Yelly.
That's enough to you get. Who does that sound like?
Sounds exactly like you. I think it's a great idea. And for people who don't know, Lee, we should also remind everybody you are a stroke survivor and your recovery is ongoing. So, what we just heard was an artificial intelligence voice print of you reading the news.
And I'm really a big fan, really a big advocate of AI. Now, by the way, let me mention one quick little aside on AI, because Jason, I know you like tech. Like I'm a tech nerd, right? And I know you like science fiction. Is that correct?
100%.
Okay, let me give you a science fact. Let me tell you one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk introduced a few weeks ago his robots, Optimus, for
Right.
instance, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you saw those; they're amazing, and I
Yes, I
believe
want one.
everyone. I would say within 10 years you'll have one because
I
there'll be a.
want it.
Is that you think optimistic or is it realistic?
I
Ten
think
years.
less. They have it in the window at the Tesla store in New York City, not this new one. They have the old one, and it's just kind of like a display. It's not really moving or anything. But I saw this video, Lee, where they've got it walking around on a hill, and it was pretty impressive because it's kind of able to recover from almost tripping and stuff like that. It's pretty amazing. Did you see this one?
So I'm going to talk about more about this publicly soon. But I've been using a platform I told you about that gives AIs personality, so you can talk to them and
Hmm.
interests and stuff like that. So think about that. Makes sense? Okay. ChatGPT with a personality.
Hmm. I think a lot of people are
And
concerned on some levels. Obviously, there's a lot of concerns. You and I should be doing, I think, some shows specifically about AI because we also, in addition to our opinions of it, you've been doing tons of stuff, this personality stuff, tons of generative AI art. I've done some of that myself. I've really been delving into AI in terms of helping me draft legal briefs, and it is getting so powerful. It's
we
difficult
talked
to
about that. Yeah.
describe.
Okay. So let me put this. Let's say your legal thing. Let's say that AI you're dealing with is data, right? It's data on a server somewhere. Okay.
Hmm.
Make sense? It's
Yes,
in other words, it's not your laptop or your phone. The
right.
AI, which is
Cloud,
device independent. You with me so
right.
far?
Yes.
And so that means if you got a new laptop, the AI with all some memories would transfer there. right?
Correct.
So think of the device not being restricted to your phone or laptop. Let's say you had a Tesla car, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Could you transfer that data to your car so the AI you talk to every day would know, like if you said, go to the courthouse,
Yeah,
it would go, okay, now that's possible, right?
absolutely.
Now, let's put two things I just said together. The robots are also a device. So your AI's personality and knowledge and memory could be transferred to that robot. So if you say, give me the file for whatever case, it
Yep.
could walk in. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. It's amazing. I mean, people who don't like it, I was getting into a conversation with Ashton Forbes last night on Twitter where he is sort of taking the Tucker Carlson approach of, kill it on the vine before. And I said, listen, man, that toothpaste is not going back in the tube. You cannot undo it. It's here. And it's my opinion, I think you share this opinion, that the best approach now is to dive in head first and understand it and understand how you can work with it and control it rather than let it control you. Obviously, there's aspects of the development that are out of our control. We've heard a lot of stories about how this O1 AI has tried to escape. And I don't know if you know much about this story, Lee. I just heard a little bit about this, but basically there's some whistleblower from OpenAI who was found dead. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard about it. I don't know much about it. So let me give you the real sci-fi part. Okay.
Sure.
Now think about this. Elon Musk is working on Mars travel. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the problem is, how long will it take to get to Mars?
I think 6 months. It depends on what time of year and the position of the Earth and all that.
But how often do you have 6 months to go somewhere?
It's
How
just
often?
crazy. In a tiny little thing the size of an SUV or whatever, it would be, how could you? I don't want to go.
Right. But let's say you want to send your assistant there. Let's say I was working for you. You said, Lee, go to Mars.
Go to Mars.
Right. But let me tell you what you could do. If you understand what I'm saying about AIs transferred into a body, into a physical presence through robots, what if you could transmit the data, the memory, into a robot that's already on Mars? How long
It'd
would
be
that
instant.
take, Jason?
Yeah, instant. Or I think there's some latency. It takes a few minutes. They want to put some kind of relay server in space to do email on Mars.
So, right. But let's say a scientist is trying to find out something about Mars. It could transfer its AI assistant via data instantly, basically, round it off instantly. Like it
Sure.
might take a minute.
Whatever.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Much faster than your physical body could ever travel. And furthermore,
Correct.
let's say, well, how would the physical body get there? Here's an idea. You send one in a rocket, and then that one builds other ones.
Right.
I getting freaked out yet, Jason?
No, I mean, I'm not freaked out. I think, I mean, look, this is inevitable. And like I said to Ashton Forbes, I think that people who fear it, Lee, when cars came out, don't you think the person with the horse farm was like, this is crazy. People can't drive around 50 miles an hour. You're going to crash and kill everybody. Just get a horse and don't get a car.
And that's why I'm impressed by people like Chuck Yeager. You know, Chuck Yeager was featured in the one Apollo movie, The Test Pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Yeager, a great movie about him. Sam Shepard and Jessica Lange, I think. Chuck Yeager, how did he know going that fast wouldn't kill him?
Didn't.
Right?
He didn't know.
No one had ever been that fast. So it might have just like exploded his brain or something. That's why these test pilots, they really are brave heroes.
I didn't realize he died on December 7th, 2020, Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah. So everything I just said, if people are picking up what I'm saying, it's not science fiction. It's absolute science fact, right? I mean, nothing I said, you can't poke a hole in anything. It is data. It can be transferred. To any device, and it could be transferred to a robot, and that robot could be transferred across the galaxy, basically.
I want to keep it at my house and have it clean up my room and do all the, legal briefs. But Lee, let me take you back to because I want to hear about it. People want to know. I know you were poring over this OIG report, and everybody is very interested in January 6th. I speak with William Pope quite a bit. He's one of the January 6th defendants who's been doing his own case. He's been defending himself pro se. He's doing an incredible job, and everybody is hoping to get pardons and stuff. What was the most important stuff in this OIG report, you think?
So again, the reason I mentioned the AI stuff is because I read this report via AI. It instantly summarized it. Okay. Now I'll talk about large language model bias. A lot of people take large language model bias personally. So if you sent this report up to ChatGPT and said, "What do you think?" it might say some things that you and I would disagree with. That's because it's a large language model. It's based on consensus view, data that's out there that humans put in it, not even nefariously. It's just the consensus view, right?
Correct.
And we've talked about this before, but I could see through that bias because I can tell, okay, that's saying the bullshit, everyone. Like if you ask an AI, is Vladimir Putin a good guy or a bad guy? It would almost in probability say he's a bad guy. Now, I don't agree with that. But the reason it's saying that is not because the AI is biased. It's not because the AI has some, what I often say is AI doesn't give a fuck. AI doesn't care. But you see what I'm saying?
It's like the honey badger.
Right. But I can tell the bias. But if I go through facts with AI, they can learn quickly. So I had the AI summarize the report and read it to me. Now, in a lot of ways, this IG report is very dull. It's a report from Michael Horse, the Inspector General of the FBI. And it's kind of reporting. Now, I'll just tell you the bias I'm talking about. Like, he focuses a lot that there were breaches in FBI protocol and they weren't canvassing. They were confidential human sources, CHSs, okay, their informants properly. Now, but that assumes one thing. What does it assume?
That there were confidential human informants there?
The fact that the report emphasizes failures in canvassing. So they're saying the FBI didn't gather the data, but that implies what? That there is data. In other words, what I'm saying, the FBI report kind of assumes that there was a plot to breach the Capitol. There's a plot to overthrow the government. You see what I'm saying?
So he's starting with a conclusion, basically.
What's that?
He's kind of starting with a conclusion.
Right. But again, I understand that. The consensus in D.C. among, I would say, all Democrats and some Republicans is that it was you and I view this as a constitutionally protected protest, right?
Yes,
I mean,
correct.
Jason, you were there on January 6th.
Yeah.
Were you trying to overthrow the government?
No. And you know what, Lee? The whole day was so nice. It was like going to Coachella or a Grateful Dead concert or something like that. Everybody was just like milling around, talking, drinking beer, having fun, listening to Trump speak and all that stuff. Nobody.
No, I assume I wasn't there, but you were. You said it was like Coachella or Grateful Dead concert. I assume there was less LSD and sex.
Yeah, no acid and grilled cheese sandwiches, but otherwise it was pretty similar.
If someone would have spiked January 6th, that would have been a trip.
I only ever went to one Grateful Dead concert.
On the steps of the Capitol.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is that we view January 6th the way we view it, but we're the minority. I'm just numerically. So, and I take this personally because I've interviewed Enrique Tarrio a number of times. And Enrique has been sentenced to 22 years in prison. And now in the report, one thing they mentioned, now people like us have been saying for years that there were informants from the FBI. And how were we treated, Jason? By the mainstream.
Oh, they said they were conspiracy theorists.
Right. This report confirms that there were 26, I'll call them informants, on the Capitol that day. 26. And that 4 of them entered the Capitol, and that 13 of them entered like the security perimeter, the building or whatever. And that of the 26, Jason, what percentage do you think were prosecuted?
Probably 0.
Right, 0. And this is all in the report. So you see, the raw facts are, despite the mainstream media and the government claiming that saying there were informants there was a conspiracy theory. You see what I'm saying? The government and the media have been lying about the number of informants, and this report lays that bare.
I think he's still lying, though, Lee. I think there were way more than 26 there because, I mean, in that video, there's one sequence where I captured 4 of them just all together. Let me show you this for a second, because when I heard that 26, again, it's like a limited hangout, right? They tell you there were 26 there, but I think there were hundreds, potentially, of FBI confidential informants.
The reason it's important that they said there's 26 is there's a difference between 1 and 0.
Right.
Like, if you say there were informants and this report said there were 0,
right,
like, then there's no informants there. If it said there's 1, then you could say it's a small number, but still, you can't say there were no informants. There was 1 informant. And when it says 26, it's a significant enough number. And they also admit that one of their informants, the Proud Boys in Ricky's group, Proud Boys, get them getting started.
Mm-hmm.
So they admit an informant was like in the Proud Boys, talking to Enrique and people like that. Now, what do you think they found from those informants?
I don't know.
Nothing. And that report admits that too. So, like, for instance, on January 5th, there's a meeting between Stuart Rose from the Promise Keepers, the Oath Keepers, different group. Okay. Stuart Rhodes and Enrique Tarrio. Now, the report, and you can find it if you look at it, they had a meeting on January 5th. Now, it was a secret. The prosecutors who sentenced Enrique to 26 years in prison. I think 26. No, it's 22.
Yeah.
26 is the number of informants they admit to. So 22 years in prison.
It's crazy.
What do you think, and how do you think the prosecutors characterized the meeting between Enrique and Stuart Rhodes?
Probably said they were trying to take over the Capitol.
Right. It's a secret meeting, right? So they're planning to do that. They made it out that way in court. This is actually what prosecutors did. This is what led to Enrique's prosecution. Does that make sense so far, Jason?
Yep. They set him up. They just,
No, but the report also says that there was a documentary crew at the meeting. Now, let me ask you this.
How secret is that?
Right. When you plan a secret meeting,
don't make a documentary about it.
That's right. That's, again, this is the stuff you can find if you really look at the report. But again, the consensus media is reporting that there's going to be there are failures of the FBI. No, there were assumptions made by the FBI and the government. There were lies told afterwards. Now, by the way, I can say this definitively. Enrique and Stuart Rhodes were convicted of seditious treason on no direct evidence at all. I'll say that again.
It's crazy.
We have Americans, Enrique Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes, were convicted of a serious charge, seditious treason, on the basis of zero evidence at all, just implications and characterizations. So the report also says, do you know what the FBI considered a nefarious statement, and they prosecuted them based on it? It's not like Enrique going, okay, guys, bring your bombs, bring your rifles. That would be direct proof.
Yeah.
Right?
I know Owen Schroyer said
that.
1776 or something, and they put him in jail.
Boom. He's right. They were talking about 1776. Now, do you know who's talking about 1776? After 1776?
I don't know.
The founding fathers, right?
Oh, right.
I mean,
Right. Yeah.
obviously dangerous, seditious, treasonous. That's King George's. I talk a lot about England is a bad guy. I'd say the same attitude. Who would have thought Jefferson and Hamilton and Franklin were seditious, treasonous? What country?
England.
Right. I'm saying they're taking the same point of view as England, that 1776 is treason. It's just a noting it. So there's a lot of fascinating stuff in the report, but you got to really look into it and dig into it. And using ChatGPT, I was able to do that quickly. I had summarized the report. I told it summarize the report from a MAGA conservative libertarian perspective, and it did that. But I know some biased language. So then I ask it questions. I don't get pissed. I don't go, well, okay, I'll jump on Twitter and say ChatGPT has a liberal bias, blah, blah. I don't do that. I try to get information. So I told ChatGPT, okay, is there any example of Stuart Rhodes or Enrique making a direct statement? And when they were largely like there were none. And so you hear the bias in that?
That's not biased if it's true.
No,
right?
you hear largely. Look, like I say, if I said, well, Jason's trying to kill me, and someone looked into your actions and said, there's largely no bias. There's largely no evidence that Jason tried to kill Lee.
That's not the same as no actual evidence.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. 0 is not 1. It sounds like there's 1 digit difference, but there's a huge difference. It's different. Right. If I use a big word, I might not be able to pronounce. It's a qualitative difference. It's not just quantity. It's qualitative. It's a different. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that Stuart Rhodes went to Yale and law school.
Well, treasonous often do. So they're thinking about this. There are Americans in jail for long sentences right now for seditious treason with no direct evidence, none. And at the end of my discussions, prepare for the show, I asked ChatGPT, is there any evidence at all, like one piece of evidence that was presented that shows they were attempting to, commit treason or attempting a violent overthrow of the government? Because with people like Stuart Rhodes and Enrique, you can't say they don't have guns. They had guns. They should been bringing them, right? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, Lee, let me pause you just for a second because we've reached the end of our segment here and people are going to be able to watch the rest of the show. We're just going to take a brief pause, and I encourage people to make their way over to patreon.com/Stranahan and sponsor Lee. You're going to be able to join us for the sponsor exclusive segment in just a few minutes. People can also catch that on any of the Crowdsource the Truth sponsorship channels. Please join us on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com, or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. You know, Lee, this new in-car setup is a little bit cool. People get to see somewhat how the sausage gets made with all the equipment kind of visible on camera here. But we'll be right back. Stay with us, everybody. Don't forget to sponsor Lee or check out the show on one of the Crowdsource the Truth sponsorship pages. Thanks for tuning in. Don't go anywhere.